Alright, settle in, folks, because we're about to crash the most bizarre tea party you've ever imagined. Picture this, a giant table, like, ridiculously oversized, chilling under a tree. And who's at it? The March Hare and the Hatter. Now, these two are having tea, but get this, they're using a sleeping dormouse as a literal cushion. Elbows on the poor guy, chatting away over its head. Alice, bless her heart, thinks, ouch, that's gotta be uncomfortable for the little fella. But hey, snooze control, right? Probably doesn't even notice. So, this massive table, right? You'd think there'd be plenty of space. Nope. These two goofs are practically sitting on top of each other in one corner. Alice rocks up, and they immediately start screeching, "No room! No room!" Like a couple of seagulls fighting over a single French fry. Alice, with admirable sass, retorts, "Excuse me, but there's a whole ballroom of space here," and plonks herself down in a fancy armchair at the opposite end. Confidence, 100. Then comes the classic March Hare move, "Wine, darling? Fancy a sip?" Alice, ever so polite, scans the table. Nada. Zip. Zero wine. Just a whole lot of tea. I'm not seeing any wine, she ventures, a hint of confusion in her voice. The March Hare, with the deadpan delivery of a seasoned comedian, replies, "Oh, because there isn't any." Alice, clearly not amused, shoots back, "Well, that's not very polite, offering something you don't have." And the March Hare, a master of deflection, counters, "And it wasn't very polite of you to sit down without an invitation, was it?" Touché, March Hare, touché. Alice, trying to regain some high ground, says, "Hey, how was I supposed to know this was your table? There's enough place settings for a small army." Just then, the Hatter, who'd been silently scrutinizing Alice like she was a new species, pipes up with his first contribution to the conversation, "Your hair needs a trim, sweetie." Alice, taken aback by this unsolicited fashion advice, responds with a touch of frostiness, "You know, dear sir, it's generally considered rude to make personal remarks." The Hatter, with eyes wide like saucers, then drops the bomb, "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" Alice's face lights up. "Oh, finally! A riddle! I bet I can crack this one," she announces, practically vibrating with excitement. The March Hare, ever the buzzkill, asks, "So, you actually think you know the answer?" Alice, brimming with confidence, confirms, "Absolutely." The March Hare, however, isn't done with his philosophical musings. "Then you should say what you mean," he insists. Alice, a little flustered, quickly clarifies, "I do say what I mean. Or at least, I mean what I say. Same difference, right?" Oh, Alice. So young, so naive. The Hatter, shaking his head dramatically, chimes in, "Not even close. That's like saying I see what I eat is the same as I eat what I see." The March Hare, eager to contribute to this profound linguistic debate, adds, "Exactly. What I like what I get is the same as I get what I like." And then, the Dormouse, still semi-comatose, mumbles, "Or if I breathe when I sleep is the same as I sleep when I breathe." The Hatter, seizing the opportunity for a MIC drop, declares, "Well, that's certainly true for you." And just like that, the conversation dries up like a forgotten sponge cake, leaving an awkward silence. Alice, meanwhile, is racking her brain for any connection between ravens and writing desks. Spoiler alert, there's not much there. Breaking the awkward silence, the Hatter pulls out a watch the size of a dinner plate. He's shaking it, holding it to his ear, looking as worried as a squirrel who's lost his favorite nut. "What day of the month is it?" he asks Alice, who, after a moment of consideration, replies, "The 4th. The Hatter sighs dramatically, 2 days off. "I told you that butter wouldn't work." He glares at the March Hare. The March Hare, looking like a scolded puppy, meekly offers, "But it was the best butter, you know." The Hatter grumbles, "Yes, but probably full of crumbs. You should never use a bread knife for butter, amateur." The March Hare, in a desperate attempt to fix things, snatches the watch, peeks at it gloomily, then, in a move that screams desperation, dips it into his teacup. He pulls it out, takes another look, and then, completely unhelpfully, repeats, "It was the best butter, you know." Alice, peering over his shoulder, remarks, "Wow, that's a wild watch. It tells you the day of the month but not the actual time." The Hatter retorts, "Why should it? Does your watch tell you the year it is?" Alice, quick on the draw, replies, "Of course not, but that's because the year stays the same for ages." The Hatter, with a smug grin, says, "Which is precisely the case with mine." Alice is utterly baffled. The Hatter's logic is as clear as mud, yet he's speaking English. "I'm genuinely not following," she admits, trying to be polite. Just then, the Hatter notices the Dormouse has drifted off again. He casually pours a little hot tea right onto its nose. The Dormouse, with an exasperated headshake but no open eyes, mutters, of course, precisely what I was about to say myself." The Hatter, turning back to Alice, asks, "So, solved the riddle yet?" Alice, admitting defeat, says, "Nope, I give up." "What's the answer?" The Hatter shrugs, "Couldn't tell why, I haven't the slightest idea." The March Hare, ever helpful, adds, "Me neither." Alice, with a weary sigh, says, "Seriously, you guys could find a better use for your time than making up riddles with no answers." The Hatter, looking genuinely offended, schools her. "If you knew time as well as I do, you wouldn't talk about wasting it. Time, my dear, is him." Alice's eyes widen. "I'm sorry, what now?" The Hatter, with a dismissive flick of his head, scoffs, "Of course you don't. I bet you've never even had a conversation with time." Alice, trying to be careful, replies, "Well, maybe not, but I know I have to beat time when I'm learning music." "Aha," the Hatter exclaims, as if unlocking the secrets of the universe. "That explains everything. He can't stand being beaten. If you just kept on his good side, he'd let you do whatever you want with the clock. Imagine, it's 9 in the morning, time for dreadful lessons, but you just whisper a little something to time, and zip. The clock jumps to 1:30, time for lunch. The March Hare, barely audible, mumbles to himself, "I wish." Alice, lost in thought, says, "That would be awesome, but then I wouldn't be hungry for lunch, you know." The Hatter, ever the problem solver, suggests, "Well, you could just keep it at 1:30 for as long as you like." Alice, a flicker of suspicion in her eyes, asks, "Is that how you manage things?" The Hatter shakes his head sadly. "Not me. We had a falling out last March, right before he went bonkers, you know." He points a teacup spoon at the March Hare. "It was at the Queen of Hearts' big concert, and I was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Bat. How I wonder what you're at. You know the tune, right?" Alice, trying to be diplomatic, says, "I've heard something like it, yeah." The Hatter, seemingly unconcerned with her non-committal answer, continues, "And then it goes on, like this, up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle." At this point, the Dormouse jolts awake and starts serenading everyone with "Twinkle, twinkle, twinkle, twinkle," on repeat, for so long that they eventually have to pinch him to make him stop. Anyway, the Hatter resumes, "I was barely through the first verse when the Queen leaps up and screams, 'He's murdering time. Off with his head.'" Alice gasps, "How incredibly brutal." And ever since then, the Hatter continues, his voice dripping with melancholy, "Time won't do a single thing I ask. It's been stuck at 6 o'clock ever since." A light bulb clicks on in Alice's head. "Is that why there are so many tea things out here?" she asks, looking around at the cluttered table. "Bingo," the Hatter sighs. "Always tea time, and no time to wash up between rounds. So you just keep moving around the table then?" Alice deduces. "Precisely," the Hatter confirms. "As things get used up." "But what happens when you get back to the beginning?" Alice ventures, a touch of trepidation in her voice. "Let's change the subject," the March Hare interjects, stifling a yawn. "I'm utterly bored with this. I vote the young lady tells us a story. Alice, taken slightly aback, says, "Oh, I'm afraid I don't know any stories." Then the Dormouse shall, they both exclaim, practically in unison. "Wake up, Dormouse!" They start pinching him from both sides. The Dormouse slowly blinks his eyes open. "I wasn't asleep," he rasps, his voice raspy and weak. "Heard every word you lot were yammering on about." "Tell us a story," demands the March Hare. "Oh, please do," Alice pleads. "And make it snappy, or you'll be nodding off again before you're done," the Hatter adds with a warning. Once upon a time, the Dormouse begins, rushing his words, there were 3 little sisters, Elsie, Lacey, and Tilly. And they lived at the bottom of a well. Alice, who always had a keen interest in culinary matters, immediately asks, what did they eat? The Dormouse, after a moment of deep thought, declares, treacle. Alice, gently, points out they couldn't have survived on that, you know. They'd have been terribly sick. And they were, the Dormouse says, with a dramatic pause, very sick indeed. Alice tries to visualize such an unusual diet but quickly gives up. But why were they living at the bottom of a well? "Have some more tea," the March Hare says to Alice, with an earnestness that seems misplaced. Alice, a little offended, replies, "I haven't had any yet, so I can't exactly have more, can I?" "You mean you can't have less," the Hatter corrects triumphantly. "It's shockingly easy to have more than nothing." "Nobody asked your opinion," Alice snaps. "Oh, look who's making personal remarks now," the Hatter retorts, a smug grin spreading across his face. Alice, momentarily speechless, helps herself to some tea and a slice of bread and butter, then turns back to the Dormouse, repeating her question, "But why did they live at the bottom of a well?" The Dormouse takes another minute or two to ponder this profound question before declaring, "It was a treacle-well." Alice starts to protest, there's no such thing, but the Hatter and March Hare shush her. The Dormouse, clearly annoyed, mutters, "If you can't be civil, you can finish the story yourself." "No, please go on," Alice pleads, humbling herself. "I promise not to interrupt again." "I suppose there could be one." "One, indeed," the Dormouse huffs indignantly, but eventually agrees to continue. "And so these 3 little sisters, they were learning to draw, you see. What did they draw?" Alice blurts out, completely forgetting her promise. "Treacle," the Dormouse replies instantly, without any hesitation this time. "I need a clean cup," the Hatter interrupts. "Everyone, let's shift places." He moves as he speaks, the Dormouse shuffles after him, and the March Hare slides into the Dormouse's spot. Alice, a little reluctantly, takes the March Hare's seat. Only the Hatter actually benefits from this musical chair's routine. Alice, on the other hand, is now worse off, as the March Hare had just flooded his plate by upending the milk jug. Not wanting to upset the Dormouse again, Alice cautiously asks, "But I still don't get it. Where did they draw the treacle from?" The Hatter, with an air of superior logic, explains, "Well, you draw water from a water well, so it stands to reason you'd draw treacle from a treacle well, wouldn't you, genius?" "But they were in the well," Alice says to the Dormouse, pointedly ignoring the Hatter's sarcasm. "Of course they were," the Dormouse replies, "well in." This answer completely discombobulates Alice, so she lets the Dormouse ramble on for a bit without interruption. "They were learning to draw," the Dormouse continues, yawning and rubbing his eyes, clearly succumbing to sleepiness. "And they drew all sorts of things, everything that starts with an M. Why with an M?" Alice asks. "Why not?" the March Hare retorts, quite reasonably. Alice, having nothing to say to that, falls silent. By this point, the Dormouse's eyes have drooped shut, and he's heading for dreamland. But the Hatter, ever the diligent tormentor, pinches him, and he yelps awake. That begins with an M, he picks up, like mousetraps, and the moon, and memory, and muchness, you know, like when you say things aren't much of a muchness. Have you ever seen a drawing of muchness? Alice, thoroughly bewildered, admits, honestly, now that you mention it, I don't think. Then you shouldn't be talking, the Hatter snaps. This rude comment is the final straw for Alice. She stands up in disgust and walks away. The Dormouse instantly falls back to sleep, and neither the Hatter nor the March Hare even notice her departure, though she glances back a few times, half hoping they'd call to her. The last thing she sees of them is the two maniacs trying to cram the Dormouse into a teapot. "Well, I'm never going there again," Alice declares, picking her way through the woods. "That was the single most ridiculous tea party of my entire life." Just as she says this, she spots a tree with a door carved right into it. How peculiar, she thinks. But then again, everything's peculiar today. Without a second thought, she goes inside. And just like that, she finds herself back in the long hall, right next to the little glass table. "All right, Alice," she tells herself, "redo time. I'll nail it this time." She grabs the little golden key and unlocks the door leading to the garden. Then, she takes a strategic bite of the mushroom she'd cleverly kept a piece in her pocket, shrinks down to about a foot tall, and scurries through the tiny passage. Finally, she emerges into the gloriously vibrant garden, surrounded by bright flowerbeds and refreshing fountains. Fresh air, logic, and absolutely no teapots. What a relief!